friends. I believe that God has kept you well and okay. Thank you for tuning in into this channel. I believe that we are going to learn more about mental health and issues that are relating to mental health. Kindly take 1 minute or two and click that button, subscribe, and let us move together as a family. Today I have come here with a topic about mental health, and we are going to look into things like what is mental health and contributing factors about mental health. But this is geared towards wholeness of care. That means that we want to be whole body, spirit, mind, and even community that we live in. We want to be productive in the community that we live in and in the world at large. So we are going to talk about recovery, which is a new term in psychiatry. It does not only focus on the signs and symptoms. It focuses on how a facilitator or a counselor can walk through with the client throughout this process of recovery. The questions about this are: what works for you? How can you be able to overcome all this? What do you think we should do? Then we'll just work with the client or the person throughout the process of this recovery. It is a good topic that we're going to discuss today, but today we are just going to touch the basics, and in our next video, as we post, we'll be talking about these disorders in details. Thank you so much and welcome. Let us go straight to our topic, and the topic is: what is mental health? What is mental health? From those, we have mental and we have health. So mental relates to things to do with the mind. So cognitively, as we grow up, there are things that our brain expanded to and get used to. And there as we are reasoning beings, there are things that we reason out, whether they are good or bad. According to the ethics is one of the yardsticks that we use to examine our actions and behavior. And out of this, we think and reason and use our mental faculties to either examine our behavior, our actions, thoughts, and feelings, if they are going together with the accepted standards of our society and the world at large. So that is part of the mental of the mind. And the health is being in good state of normal bodily function, normal hormonal balance, and normal body functions, as I had said. So when we talk about mental illnesses, it means that an illness is a disorder, is something that is against the normal function of the body. And when it is mental, it affects how we reason, think, and behave. So a mental illness can simply be understood or discussed as the range of mental disorders that incapacitates our thinking and actions, and hence render us useless in terms of coping with the life challenges and demands of life. So that is a brief definition of mental illness. You can find different definitions from different scholars. You have different approaches to this mental illness. But I just wanted to give a brief definition about it. And this a disorder is something that is out of order. Like disadvantage is out of advantage. So a disorder is something that is out of order. So when you say mental disorder, it means that the things that put our mind out of order. So that's why we want us to look into this in detail. And things like this are anxiety, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, and we have so many things, depression, and we'll talk about those one in details in our next video. But today, let's just briefly touch on the introduction to this. Now, question about causes of mental disorder. What causes mental disorder? You cannot pinpoint one cause about mental disorder, but we can hypothetically, or we can say that logically, we can say that some of our past experiences contributes towards this mental disorder, or some genetics, inheritance and variations, and the triggers of loss and trauma, things like life circumstances also exposes us to these kind of disorders. When I talk about past painful experience, are things like either you lost your parents when you are still young and you are left under the care of your relatives, and through that you are made to be either a maid while the rest were going to school, or rather a loved someone whom was placed there as a caregiver molested you when you were young, and because you didn't have the grounds to confront the person, you kept quiet with this secret, and you didn't have any other place to run to, because the person had a standing or moral standing in the society. Now, we also have things like maybe you lived in the street when you're still young, or maybe you experienced a horrific accident and you lost your friends, and so these things have not been solved. So these things that we pass through, if not solved, there is a kind of worldview and lenses that they create towards us. Some can be religious lenses, some can be through observation, some can be didactic, can contribute towards logic lenses, and some can be can contribute to many things. And these lenses that we obtain because of our past experiences shapes kind of life and future that we will live. Now, this powerful and these experiences that we passed through forms questions. The questions might be so painful and powerful, and they demand answers. And these questions can be: why was I the only person who was whom God allowed to go through what I went through? Am I this unlovable person? Will anyone, or will my beloved really trust me when he or she realizes what I did in the past? Maybe you had a life in the past, and as a lady, maybe someone used you and molested you, and you conceived, and the person denied the baby. So you decided that the baby be aborted, and you have remained with this anger, towards men, and you don't trust men again. But with the grace and divine providence, you got someone who loved you, and you have been struggling to get a child, and because of what you did in the past, your womb was affected and you cannot be able to again conceive. But you have never come out and explain this to your spouse, And then you say, if he realizes what I did, and what I did is what has contributed to this situation, will he ever trust me again? So those are deep questions and the real questions that we need to ask about ourselves, and we are asking ourselves. Sometimes, was my mom supposed to die that young? Was she supposed to go through what she went through? Or things like those are things some young people ask questions like, why is it that I'm the only person who has never been taken seriously in this family? Why is it that some of my siblings are treated better and with more attention? And then you grow up trying to do things to get this attention, or the things that you are doing are just questions. They might not be in words, but they are in action, and we treat them as questions. So out of them can be drug abuse, things like those. Drug abuse, either you get into gangs to get some kind of satisfaction because there is a void that was left when you were growing up. So some of the question may not be verbal, but some of them can be non-verbal and through actions. So there are questions in life that we ask. Now, these questions that we ask in life, they need answers. But when we fail to get answers or bad answers at all, then we develop, it generates to mental problem. Now, when I talk about bad answers, I can give an example like you had been told about this, either maybe church, and you had a problem, as we all say, we always have problems today. But today there is rampant of religious manipulation, and people use psychology to manipulate the congregation. So you are told that you need to give, or rather, you are told that you are going through this because of what you did in the past, and you are not told the exact thing that you did in the past. There are so many things that we have done in the past in secret and in the open, and some of them we may not be able to remember. So if you are told because of what you did in the past, you ask yourself, can God just let me suffer? Is it not God of forgiveness? So the way we sometimes present God in the church and synagogues either rend people either losing belief in God, and sometimes they misinterpret this love that we say God has. So that is apologetics, that is removing God from the blame. Now, as I can say, gospel is so simple, but human being through religion has made it so complex, so to a point that we cannot be able to understand. But it's supposed to be as simple to a point that even a Sunday school kid can understand the gospel. But we have made it so complex and so complicated to a point that instead of helping people living whole life, or being healthy in body, spirit, and mind, we end up with so many people doing some stuff, some bad things in the name of attaining spiritual atonement. So friends, these contributing factors, you maybe that person told you it is because of what you did, or maybe the person, because you don't understand the Bible so well, the one is called men of God, either molested you and told you, if after doing this then you'll get a breakthrough. Then later, when you came to realize that that was a manipulation and oppression to a certain extent, then you grow up and ask some questions. You either grow up with a negative attitude towards any person called a man of God, or a pastor, or a church as a whole. If you cannot find answers from the church, then you can try to find answers outside the church and that may not be healthy enough. But it's good for us to seek for answers. So sometimes when now you go and either explain what a man of God who is trusted, has this trust of men because of the standing in the society, did it to you, many people will say either you are the one who compromised the situation, or maybe you post yourself to the extent that you entice a man of God, and that is why that happened. So the blame comes to you. That's bad answer. It's not good answer. Okay. Was it a problem? Was it your problem to go to someone who called man of God, who speaks for God, so that you may get help from the same? It's not your problem, so that is bad answer to say that everyone must be accountable for what they have done and for their actions. So that is called a bad answer, or sometimes you may not get answers. So this lack of answers or bad answers contributes towards mental disorders. Now, when we talk about these mental disorders, it is because of the sufferings. But the truth is, sometimes what we went through, or the suffering that someone went through while he or she was still young, do not necessarily contribute or amount to mental disorder. Some of the sufferings are shapes how we see life, lets us mature early. Some of these experiences that we went through when you are still young helps us to see world in a different dimension. You can either be optimistic or pessimistic based on how you see the world and how you take it after these traumatizing experiences. Maybe sometimes you saw someone die, someone whom you loved so much. We have different things. Maybe you've seen it is really hard to see a parent burying his or her child. Maybe he was or she was the only child, and you cannot conceive again. And you have so many questions, and this one brings up some questions about the love of God. You are angry towards God, and you are angry towards anyone who tells you that God is a God of love and a provider. So these are real questions. These are real questions. And as a rational being, we need to ask of the same questions. Now, friends, as we have talked about suffering, there is something called a dark night of the soul. Dark night of the soul simply means that sometimes God may allow people to go through some painful moment for the sake of learning a certain lesson. You can take the story of Job, take the story of Elijah, take the story of so many biblical, like Jonah. They went through some process, so that even the apostles that went through a certain process for the sake of learning a lesson. Now, friends, when we go through that, we call dark night of the soul. But that does not equate that every suffering is something that has been allowed by God so that you go through it. For you to identify whether it is of God or not, you need to have a sitting with a spiritual counselor who will look through your life or your spiritual journey and either diagnose whether it is a dark night of the soul or it is just a case of mental illness because of your traumatic past or bad experience that you went through. People who went through dark night of the soul are like Mother Teresa, who now, because of deep capacity that God had given him to endure a painful past, she was able to help so many people in Calcutta, in India. And she even held the hands of the dying, and she said she was not willing to be interrupted, because she said when someone is dying, that is the most serene environment to be with the person as the person is passing on. So that can only be achieved when one has gone through and has the capacity to contain that kind of experience. So that kind of experience is a theological or spiritual part, but does not equate to, it cannot be equated to mental illness. Not all people who have gone through this bad past developmental illnesses. Dear friends, sometimes again, because of the lack of meaning in life, we tend to develop mental illness. And the questions that we ask ourselves are so easy, like questions about trying to find a meaning in life. At what point do we lose meaning in life? Our life is punctuated with narratives. The narratives, as you had said in life, of what you went through in life. Anytime you have any story or a successful person who has come for an interview, they always ask this question: how did you made it? What did you do so that it helped you to reach where you have reached in life? They will start with where they came from, how life was, and that is a narrative. So a narrative gives a chronological steps towards our either success or where we are in life in the present. So if you have a disjointed and fragmented narratives where you cannot be able to follow through what you went through, what you did to the point that you are now in, or rather the stage in life you are in, then you can start developing that feeling of I have no meaning in life because no one just came from out of blue. So that makes you ask questions: what does life really mean for me? So you may know, you may have reached a point of saying, whatever I do does not succeed. I don't have a benchmark. I don't have any other thing to talk about in terms of how I have done it in life. So you lose meaning in life. That a point of losing meaning in life also contributes towards mental illness. Dear friends, it is important to know that mental illness is not only for some confined individuals, but mental illness, we can say that all human beings who have been given the capacity to reason are mad to a certain degree. It is the degree that differentiates either you are at the extreme or you are not. Sometimes we walk around and we point fingers towards other people and then laugh and jeer towards them and tell them, and maybe stroke friends and tell them, this guy is mad. That statement of diagnosing another person as being mad is also a form of mental illness. From the abundance of the heart, so the mouth speaks. So if the negativity is in you, then the mind will speak of the same. You can only tell, you may not be able to tell if a person is wise until he or she opens his or her mouth. then you know whether the person is wise or not, mentally ill or not. So in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is this, that we as human beings have been given the capacity to reason. We are different from animals because animals act out of instinct. So therefore, animal cannot develop mental illness. But human beings have been given capacity to reason. And through the reason, we ask questions, and these questions need answers. And if we get wrong answers, or no answer at all, the questions keep on coming, and we have flight of unanswered questions, and this leads us to develop mental illnesses. So mental illness is not a preserve of a certain group. Anyone and everyone can develop mental illness. The context and the environment where you are in can either facilitate and accelerate this process of developing mental illnesses, or it can lower the process of doing so. So we have friends. Those who have mental illnesses are friends, are relatives, they are our colleagues, they are precious people loved by God that should be treated with great love. And when we see one that either has the symptoms of this mental illness, we can also embrace them with love. Because even some of us grew up without love. And so you interpreted the world with a lens that the world is not loving. And that when you see or you find someone who is trying to show that kind of love, the person has a different agenda behind that love that he or she is showing you. This can be because of the contributing factors, or what you went through when you are growing up, where someone either bought gifts when you're still discovering who you are. Gifts and brought things, give you nice names. Then after getting whatever they wanted from you, then again neglected, and then from being showing love to showing hate. Then you develop that kind of a lens and see people as if they are hypocrites. So we have the potential of developing mental illnesses, anxiety, depression, the stresses in life, obsessive compulsive behavior. We have seen so many people killing each other in marriages or just in relationships because they say, I cannot live without you, and if you cannot be with me, you cannot be with any other person. There is a form of a disorder called obsessive compulsive disorder. You have so many ranges of choices that you can make, but that person who is reaching to that point of killing the person, he has reached or she has reached a moment where it is a brim, the cup is full and cannot be now helped. We need to identify the symptoms early enough and help our friends and society, because we have a responsibility to take care of each other in this world. Thank you so much. Next time we are going to tackle the symptoms, and we are going also to look deep into these disorders, and then you will diagnose yourself. Are you also mentally ill or not? Thank you, and kindly again subscribe and click that button, invite friends, and let us learn together. Thank you, and have a good, wonderful day or